So, welcome to our first lesson on the wonderful world of anchors. Now, I love anchoring and I find it very, very useful. This is one of the core sort of NLP skills that you will learn throughout it, and we'll be using this too in a lot of other processes with NLP, so that you can anchor certain states and come back to them, as well as a lot of other uses. So without further ado, let's get into anchoring. So anchoring is a natural process that attaches meaning to a set of stimuli. An example of this would be driving along the road in your car and a song starts on the radio. Now, within the first bar of music, you have a flood of feelings, sounds, images of the past, where you first heard that song. So frequently you'll be able to describe what you were wearing, the names and the faces of the situations and people in there with great clarity. The song is the anchor to the memory or state. So the song attaches the meaning to a set of stimuli or that memory of where you were. Some important things to remember about anchors as we get into it. More than anything else, it needs to be congruent with my behavior. So as we get into it and as we set anchors, they need to be congruent with our behavior. So if I'm a nice, calm sort of person, or I always speak in the same tone of voice, I can't be doing fast things to set off an anchor. That will more likely break state or get someone out of rapport with me. They need to elicit and intensify the state I want to anchor. So as we get into it, and as we go through anchoring different states, we want to intensify those states. So if it's happiness, it has to be really happy. Can't just be, yeah, I'm happy sort of thing. We really want them to experience the ultimate of happiness that it is for them. And anchor always within the context of rapport, as I was saying before. If I'm nice, calm, confident, happy, I don't want to anchor someone into loud, expressive, blah, rah sort of stuff that I'm not, or that our conversation is not, if that makes sense. So the elements of anchoring. One, we want the intensity of the state. We want that state to be pure. So if we're anchoring for happiness, it has to be just happiness, not excitement and happiness, not happiness with a little bit of doubt or worry or whatever, just happiness. And then as we get through to with this lesson and stacking anchors, then we can do happy, excited, whatever else as well. The timing. So we have to know when we hit the peak of that state, which we'll talk about later, and as well as holding that anchor for that 5 to 15 seconds, which we'll also talk about as well. And the pacing of it, which comes back into that timing. The uniqueness of the stimuli. So if it is just a touch on the finger, if it is just a hand movement, is it unique? Is it something I always do? Where I'll see you in the next lesson, sort of thing? Or is it has to be something unique to that situation. So you're not confusing an anchor. So if I always put my two fingers up, then wiggling them, always doing that, might do something else. But it has to be unique so that when we fire off that anchor, it hits that state. And that too for if you anchor something onto your own body. So we'll talk about more of that later. And identical repetition. You have to be able to identify and fire off that anchor exactly. So if, once again, it's this one, I can't then have my finger to the side to do that because it's not the identical repetition of that anchor. So the way in which I install the anchor must be congruent and within the context of ecology. So that person, it must make sense to them and be what they want. It can't be my own mind read on them to what they want. Now, it is one of the most exquisite, powerful and natural communication tools that we have. And it is awesome. When you use it right, when you do it right, I have collapsed and done all sorts of anchors where it's really gotten people past some stuff that they were going through. So some examples of it, if it's not quite making sense. Now a teacher might elicit a state of perfect learning, then anchor that state so it can be reactivated for the next lesson where they have those students. So elements of this state might be excitement, curiosity, wondering what new things there are to learn and how they'll relate to other learnings. So I don't know how the teacher might do this. It might just be a touch on the face. It might just be a clap. It might be an action like, hurrah, we're learning sort of thing. And as they come in, it's like, yes, we've got this class again. Reenacting that stimuli to get those students revved, excited, curious, wondering again. Or the coach might elicit a state for achievement. Elements of this state may call up that animal instinct within, that will to win, that competitiveness, the passion for competition, the sense of speed, lightness and vibrancy. Now how they do that? It might be an action. It might be something that they do there. So as that athlete goes up to compete, they give them that action. So it calls upon that sense. It fires off that anchor and brings back that state for achievement. Now looking at the process of anchoring. So it's 4 easy steps. As we'll show in an example as well, we have the person recall a vivid experience. Now this produces a state, as we've been talking about. So the state of happiness or a state of excitement, whatever the case may be. But we want that vividness. So see, hear, feel, touch as well, whatever it may be. Maybe it's a certain smell as well. Can you smell the sound of can you smell the ocean or something like that? We provide a specific stimulus before the peak or state. So as you can see in the diagram there, where we're looking at setting that anchor. Now that specific stimulus might be a hand action if they've got their eyes open. It may be touching them on the shoulder. It might be a certain sound. Anything at all that is a specific stimulus for them. From you or by themselves as well. They might be setting off that anchor by touching themselves in a way. We change the person's state. So this is after that 5 to 15 seconds, we're holding that anchor, whether it's holding it on them or we keep repeating that noise, whatever the case may be, to really set that anchor in. Then we change or break the person's state. What did you have for lunch? Do you know where flies sleep? Was that your phone that was going off? Then we set off the anchor again, providing that unique stimuli, whatever it be, the touch, the sound, anything at all that we used, to test, to see if it allows that state to come back as pure and as good as it was when they were recalling that vivid experience, in that 5 to 15 second window where it reaches its peak. And then as a follow-up, calibrate that return of state. Was it as good? Was it as pure? Or do we have to go back and fire off that anchor again to set it in even stronger this time? But now we'll have a demonstration of simple anchoring. So welcome back. So let's have a look at the process of anchoring in a quick example. So here we have our intensity of the state. We have our time. We have, as that state intenses, we want to set that anchor. And for 5 to 15 seconds, hold it, and then release that anchor before the state dissipates or gets null. So, as we do that, we have whatever experience it might be. It might be that time of curiosity, wonder, that time of excellent learning, and we want to anchor it. So, quite simply, we're going to press that anchor. Now, you might hold an anchor, you might do an action, you might even just do a slight head movement, or you might change the tone of your voice for that anchor. Whatever you choose, but make sure it's consistent and congruent so that you can replicate it time after time after time, so that as soon as anybody sees it, hears it, they are put back to that anchor, that state. So for instance, let's say, I want you to remember a time when you were very, very happy. The happiest you've ever been. Might have been laughing with friends. It might have been receiving the best news that you've ever got. You've got that job. Whatever it was, you were absolutely elated. Now, keep thinking about that time, thinking about that time, thinking about that time. Feeling how happy, how joyous, how wonderful it was. Good, and releasing. So we've set the anchor onto this finger. And when I press the top of that finger, we've got there. Then we want to release it before that happiness starts to dissipate. Now, we would break state, saying something simple as, so what did you have for breakfast? Do you know where flies sleep at night? Something to knock them out of that, get their mind somewhere else, which is a break state. Then, we want to test our anchor again and get them to experience that happy state once again. So, if we do this and nothing happens, our anchor's not good enough. We need to reinforce it, somehow make them feel even happier, get them thinking of a different memory that's pure, clean, happy. So another thing with states too, make sure they're clean. So if that person was laughing with friends and happy, but then they had news of something tragic, that's not a very good memory, that's not a very good state to be in, because there's a lot of stuff mixed up there. So make sure the person knows, or say if you're instructing or teaching, that you have the state right, pure, clean, where you want it. So now we're moving on to stacking anchors. Now, as we move into this is where we elicit several instances or states and anchor them in the exact same position. So we're firing off that same anchor. The state chosen for a particular stacked anchor can be the same or different. Now, this is very similar to the previous process, but we're just repeating it for various different states on the same anchor. So, stacking anchors. An example of stacking anchors may be used to recall very powerful resources or for states of will. For example, a time where you were totally powerful. Locking that in, breaking state. A time where you felt totally loved. Locking that in, then breaking state. So here I'm just using the web of my hand here because I can hit that. I know when I hit the right spot. Now you may get the person to do this themselves. So when they feel the peak of that, just holding that anchor in, letting go as that state dissipates. Then breaking state by asking a question, by just getting them to shake it off, literally, whatever the case may be. Then number 3, a time where you felt you could have whatever you wanted, where you felt you could not fail, when you could have it all. Break state, after they've hit that anchor. Now a time where you felt really energetic, where you had a ton of energy, and so on and so forth, where you fell down laughing, where you felt totally confident in control. So feel free to use this. I will put this example down in the PDF below, or in the resources section, so you can use this, test it out, 1 on yourself, 2 on someone else, so you can start to create anchors for them or get them to create anchors for themselves. But this is an example. You can throw some other stuff in there. For weight loss, you might want to put really determined to lose weight, or where you loved exercise, or where you felt really full, you couldn't eat another bite, those sort of things. So start to think about what else you can use them for. But anyway guys, now let's go on with an example of stacking anchors. So now we're stacking anchors, as it were. So we had our anchor for happiness. So from there, we're going to have that time where you were totally powerful. Get them to remember a time where they were totally powerful. Excellent. Then we break state. So here, hold that for 5 to 15 seconds, release that anchor, break that state completely. What did you have for breakfast? What did you have for lunch? Why do aardvarks roll like they do? Whatever the case may be. Then, now think of a time where you were totally loved. Totally loved. Absolutely loved. You could feel love from everywhere. Or that person totally loved you and you knew it. You could feel that love right in your heart center. And good. And then, who was the last person who called you today? So breaking state once again. So that would be here on the board. And then we would go set the next anchor. A time where you felt you could have whatever you wanted. A time where you felt you couldn't fail. You could have it all. There was nothing going to stop you. You were going to have what you wanted. You could not fail. Think of that time. And break state, once again. So what are you up to later today? Good. Now I want you to feel a time where you were totally energetic, really energetic. You had so much energy. There was so much energy in your body. I want you to really feel that energy. That's it, good, right. And then just coming back into the room. So what time did you wake up this morning? Breaking that state again. And so on and so forth, stacking as many resources on that one anchor. Now, I mean, too, you might get them to stack the anchor on themselves as well, rather than watching you. So they might have their eyes closed. They might be there thinking of that time that they were totally unstoppable. Break state, that time that they were totally powerful. Break state, that time that they were totally loved. And stacking them all on there so that whenever they want, they can call up those resources on themselves. So it might be there, it might be on the elbow, it doesn't matter, anywhere at all, just as long as they can grab that point and call those resources, these anchors. But anyway guys, that is stacking anchors. So that is how to create an anchor, break the state, how to stack anchors onto the same point so that you get the powerful, the loved, the having whatever you want, and that energetic feeling, all at the one time. So, in summary, just to keep it clear, we want this pure. So this anchor to be that powerful. While we want this one to just totally be about that love. We don't want to mix these up as we're going through the process. And remember, 5 to 15 seconds. You want them to release it as they feel that state start to disappear or come back to reality. Then you want to break that state so you keep those states pure. So there's none of this power in this love. But anyway guys, play around with it. Practice, practice, practice with anchors and it will become second nature. You'll be able to anchor things just off anywhere. But anyway guys, that's it from me. I will see you in the next lesson.